shaking. We built on too many damn dreams to count. Too many damn dreams to count. To be heard, we gotta scream and shout. My city is a family. I got my grandfather's name, Remnant. Great-great-grandmother's dream, I bend it. I know from where we came, city on a hill. Every day I go to school, pity on a hill. My city is a kite, fly away. My city is a backdrop, right away. My city thinks it's a beacon, brighter day. All I want for my city is a brighter day. My city is where black boys get robbed of honor. Those on the hill rob me of honors classes. Those on the hill rob me of a peaceful walk. Those on the hill rob me of a place to talk. But what happens when black boys conquer those hills and rain down unshakable joy on the valleys, and all the poets reclaim their title as griot? I got my grandfather's name, Remnant. Great-great-grandmother's dream, I bend it. My city on my heart like a pendant. My city on my heart like a pendant.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to PS&G True Diversity Film Series. Tonight, we're going to have an amazing discussion on the topic of where do we go from here, youth empowerment. This panel and theme is based on the two-part documentary that Oprah Winfrey presented over the summer that looks at extraordinary events of 2020. And we are so proud to have our youth leaders here to share their perspective on the way forward, what it looks like and what it ought to be. I hope that you enjoyed the introduction that we just had from one of our arts education students who presented his perspective, his words on, just how do we move forward. This was by Noah Akanoye, also known as Check Mix. So thank you, Noah, for that wonderful presentation. Just to make sure you all know, the purpose of our series, our social justice series here at NJPAC, is to bring our community together and to encourage everyone to take part in the movement to ensure civil rights for all. New Jersey Performing Arts Center launched this series of events and initiatives focused on promoting racial equality. So you will find on our website, Standing in Solidarity, information that will help you to understand action steps that you can take, along with recordings of all of our panel discussions, which we started last July. And so we know we're all grappling with these various issues, and tonight we're going to listen to our youth and their voices to share with us how they are recommending we move forward. Also, I'd like to acknowledge our advisors, the Newark NAACP and the New Jersey Institute for Social Justice. I'd like to now do our land acknowledgement. We are gathered on the unceded land of the Lenape people. I ask you to join me in acknowledging the Lenape community, their elders, both past and present, as well as future generations. We must also acknowledge that the grounds NJPAC stands upon were founded upon exclusions and erasures of the voices of many indigenous and oppressed people. We acknowledge that the teaching of the United States history in schools, cultural institutions, and the media have left out many voices and difficult truths in order to create an idealized nationalist identity. We acknowledge the struggles of oppressed peoples, those actively and behind the scenes working to make our country honor its guiding principles of equality, liberty, and justice for all. So before we introduce this dynamic panel for the evening, please welcome Janine Johnson, our corporate sponsor for this film from PSE&G. Janine is a certified diversity professional working as the Enterprise Manager of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at PSEG. Her goal is to drive positive culture change and workplace behaviors through strategies and programming aligned with the company's mission, vision, and values. Thank you, Janine.
Thank you so much, Sister Donna, and to the advisors at NJPAC that put together this very important community platform. Welcome to everyone to tonight's event. My name is Janine Johnson, and I am the Manager of Enterprise Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at PSEG. I am honored to be here tonight to welcome everyone to this evening's discussion. My company, Public Service, and the PSEG Foundation are longtime partners in the New Jersey Performing Arts Center and first support of the PSEG True Diversity film series. A tremendous part of the commitment is our support for organizations such as NJPAC and what that support means for diversity, for education, and for the arts. This series reflects PSCG's commitment to Newark and the many communities in which we operate. Earlier this year, in the wake of the tragic killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis and the demonstrations that followed in cities and communities around the country, the PSCG Foundation announced another commitment called Empowering Equity and Social Justice Initiative. The initiative is PSCG Foundation's $1 million commitment to support organizations that address racial injustice, inequality, and human rights in communities of color throughout New Jersey, New York, and anywhere PSCG operates. PSCG has always had a unique and special relationship with the many diverse communities in which we live and serve. And when one of us is impacted in the PSCG community, we're all impacted. Therefore, it is vital that we all join together to act and build a framework of equity, compassion, and respect that will truly benefit us all. At PSCG, we believe our longstanding support for diversity, education, and the arts helps us to contribute to that ideal as well. And so we thank you for committing your time and your willingness to listen and to learn from one another tonight, and to listen specifically to the young lions who are speaking to us tonight. Please prepare yourselves to enjoy the discussion, and thank you.
Thank you, Janine. So before I introduce our moderator, I want to make one correction. The performance piece that we just experienced at the beginning was by Clay Hudson, who's one of our City Versus students here at NJPAC. So I want to make sure we give proper props to Clay, as he is really contributing significantly to our cultural landscape. So thank you, Clay. Now I'd like to introduce our moderator, Shakia Norris, also known as Purple Haze. We love Purple. Purple is a part of our New Jersey Performing Arts family. Purple was born in the birthplace of hip hop. She wants to make sure we know. She's from the Bronx, but she currently resides in Newark. And, you know, Purple has many different skills. She's an international MC. She translates rocks with funk and soul. She is, you know, really has impeccable flow and clever deliverance of truth. She has mastered her own rich style of spitting lyrics with both power and substance. She's recognized as a skilled performing and leader in hip hop education. And acknowledgements include she's the Ladies First Fund grant recipient. She is NJPAC's Hip Hop Intensive Program Director. She's a cultural diplomat, a Hip Hop Cultural Center and Harlem artist, a former member of the Tony Blackman's Rhyme Like a Girl collective. So this diversified talent is going to lead us in this amazing discussion tonight. Thank you so much, Purple.
Thank you again, Ms. Donna and the committee, for calling me forth to be on purpose. It is my honor and privilege to be here. I identify as my gender pronouns are she, her, and I am African American, a proud graduate of Benedictine Academy and Johnson C. Smith University. I am the daughter of Linda, Jerry, Marcus, and Jackie, and I am an advocate for young people enjoying their youth while they are young, and women being celebrated and heard, and girls being supported through sisterhood, and Newark rocking the world. I am going to pass the mic and open up this experience tonight. Thank you, everybody, for your listening ears and your openness. I'm going to first invite Oluwa to come on and tell us, Oluwa, who are you?
Hi, everyone. My name is Oluwa. I am a Nigerian American woman born and raised in Newark, New Jersey. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I recently graduated this past May from Johns Hopkins University with a degree in neuroscience, and I'm now continuing my studies at the University of Pennsylvania with the hope of becoming a physician. I am super interested in women's health, Black maternal health care. I am a birth doula and certified personal trainer.
Yes, you are, because you said so. Oliver, who is coming on next? Who do you want to pass it to?
I would like to pass the mic to Sabor.
Sabor, welcome to the space.
How you doing?
Well,
My name is Sabor. How you doing? My name is Sabor Kareem. I am a young African American male. I attend Maka High School. I'm a sophomore. I play 4 sports. I'm a student athlete. I have a 3.8 GPA, and I consider myself an advocate for young Black men in the world. In the world, I consider myself an advocate for young Black men in the world of sports, and not only just sports, but a space where we're misrepresented, because not everybody is seen as a jock who plays sports. Not everybody is seen as somebody that has a mind behind, the helmet and the pads all the time. So I think that I can speak for somebody to say that a Black man is not just what he plays. It's more. It's more of a deeper character. Yeah, 3.8. I didn't mean to say 2.8.
3.8, that's right, representing the advocacy of academic athletics. Appreciate that. Sabor, who you calling on next? We got Sammy in here, and we also have Cyrus here with us tonight. Who's next?
Cyrus.
Cyrus, where are you? Thank you.
I'm here. Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. My name is Cyrus Morell. I'm a native from North Brick City all the way. I have a mother from the Bronx and a father from New Orleans. So I have a mixture of New York style and New Orleans style mixed in me. I go and attend school in the DMV at the college, Georgetown University, where I study and major in government. I'm best known for being a disruptor in politics in terms of getting more advocacy for our people and systems that they have been denied from. I'm also a Cancer, so that's me.
Thank you, and thank you for letting us know who you are. Sammy, where you at?
Hi, I'm here. Hello, everybody. My name is Sammy. I am a sophomore sociology major at the illustrious Howard University. So to all the bison watching, HU, I am from West Orange, New Jersey, a graduate of Newark Academy, class of 2019. And I'm an Aries and a twin sister. So I think those are two interesting things about me. And I consider myself an organizer and influencer when it comes to social justice.
Thank you all again. I'm going to continue to say thank you because Maya Angelou said thank you is what you said to God. And right now, I believe it is really all of our purpose to share this space, and most importantly, for us to share the mic and listen to you all. So first, here we are, 2020. How did we get here, and what are y'all up to? When I say what are you all up to, I mean you individually and your generation. How did you get here? And why did you say yes?
I think for me, a lot of my young adulthood has been about ripping away this veil that I had about how I viewed the world and how I thought things are going. Maybe things that I suspected throughout childhood, inequalities, how I was treated versus other people, maybe things I suspected but hadn't really confirmed, have now been confirmed for me, or I have language to describe them now as a young adult. And, this year of 2020 has been about putting all of that to the forefront, really using my voice. And I think for a lot of young people has been about that. Personally, it's been specific to my high school, talking about my experience at Newark Academy in Livingston, and also also enriching my birth work experience, becoming a doula. That's how it's been for me this year.
Anyone else want to share at the top with this first question?
Sure, I could share. So, what have I been doing for the past 9 months since this pandemic started? Well, one thing I've been doing is basically monitoring the effects of the pandemic in terms of how it has affected the Black community. I had discussions, both at events and with individuals about how the Black community is affected by this pandemic and how they should go about rebuilding after this pandemic is over and we get the call that everything is safe. In terms of a generation, one thing I feel as though that this time in quarantine has the one thing that this quarantine has given us is time away from people and time to ourselves, which made us reflect on a lot, especially our role in terms of how we want to contribute to the Black community, and that became even greater. With the events that we've seen throughout the summer with the death of George Floyd, you see a lot of people within my generation starting to actually acknowledge that even though they are their respective and unique individuals, they are still part of something greater, which is the Black community.
Thank you. Samuel Sabor, you want to take one of those questions, or would you like to ask a question based upon what you just heard, or share something different?
I think this year was about a lot of facing adversity and trials and tribulations. At the start, we didn't really, the year started off pretty normal until, Corona hit. And then, we're facing Corona for 9 months. And then, as the summer comes, I apologize. But as the summer comes, a lot of things, and Black community alone happened. A lot of deaths and of, social injustice happened. And so as those things happen, we have to come together as a community and fight for what we believe in. The fight never ended. The fight might never end, will never end. So the fight has to continue. And so as that fight continued, the movement became so much bigger than what I'd ever seen, my short span of life. So I thought that although 2020 was not the best year, it was a very important year. It had to happen.
Well stated. Thank you. Sam, do you have anything that you want to say, add, or ask?
Yeah, I have a similar viewpoint to what Cyrus said. I think that, before this year, injustice has been happening forever, forever, but there was a sense of complacency that was there before the pandemic hit. And like what Cyrus was saying, um, having to sit and reflect on what was going on really became a catalyst. Corona became a catalyst. Sorry. Corona became a catalyst for a lot of the work that we had to do. And I think that was really, especially for like youth, I think that was really inspirational for us because, we're used to interacting with people on a daily basis and I know for Black youth, having these conversations on a daily basis with those that look like, with people that look like us, is something that we're used to, but being isolated forced us to be like, you know what, like we have to really have these conversations now because now I'm not afraid to be in your face about it virtually, and now not afraid to be in your face about it in person anymore, because what are you going to do really? Like there's nothing that you're going to do. I'm going to have to tell you, you're going to have to acknowledge it at this point. So yeah, that's what I think.
Well, let's look, we're going to get right into it right there. The amplification of many injustice or happenings this year, and several were mentioned, the murders of several African Americans, several people of color. Of course, we had the election this year, as well as the pandemic. Disparities in health became very obvious, and everything became amplified. And no matter which demographic or which country, everyone had a level of shutdown. So, how did you act, respond, disrupt, interrupt, and advocate? And why?
I guess I could take this one. So the shutdown was pretty crazy, but my talking point is going to be more focused on the events during the George Floyd protest. So I was in DC at the time, based in DC, living in DC, and we had protests in Lafayette Park, and that's the park right across from the White House. The White House is in view. And I remember the way I advocated is I remember going to Walmart and buying a bunch of items because they were literally firing blank shots at people, rubber bullets, firing tear gas, and I brought first aid equipment and to go down and protest, but also assist people who were at the protest. And that's how I participated in the protest and enacting responsible. All of us were wearing masks because it was still a pandemic outside, but it just that's just my answer to the question in terms of like what I have been doing thus far or had been doing when this all began.
That's real. I've been reminded and reminding people that whatever way we choose to participate, we are enough, and to serve where we see fit. And so I'm curious to hear some more. How did you take action this year and why? Sabora?
Oluwa, if you want to go, you can go.
Thank you, Sammy. So for me, at graduating from college really put me in this reflective space about my experience, not only at Hopkins, but also in high school. And I ended up using that reflective energy to write an article about my experiences at high school, because that kind of extended into what college became for me. So I wrote this article about my experience as a poor Black girl entering this really white space, and that kind of prompted a lot of discussion about how Black students really experience Newark Academy. And with the help of Sammy, she can also, jump in here. But we started organizing. Students started exposing their experiences on Instagram anonymously, and with their names attached. We started dialogues with the administration. All sorts of things started blowing up into this kind of culminating protest where we kind of gathered on campus to discuss and really expose what was really happening as Black students at that high school, and how we can move forward and what justice looks like for the experiences that we've had, but also what the school can do to prevent our experiences from repeating.
Sammy, you want to add on and speak about your participation or what advisory you all had, or what it was like to elevate your voices collectively and have adults listen? And what was that journey like? If we have people of all different generations watching this, and maybe caring to understand how to take those actions, and what does it actually look like?
Right, sure. So as Oluwa said, I helped organize the Black Lives Matter protest at Newark Academy in Livingston. And I would consider the two of us the two people who interacted with administration the most in terms of organizing that. It took a lot of not allowing our voices to be deterred, or our thoughts to be deterred by what administration was saying. There was a lot of from my experiences talking with adults in general about things like this, there's a lot of kind of circling around what the main idea is. So talking about if you present an idea and they're not exactly for it, they don't exactly want to be explicit in saying that they're not for it, they kind of give you a runaround answer. And a lot of what Oluwa and I had to do was say, no, this is what we need, and this is what needs to happen because X, Y, Z. And I think providing a lot of X, Y, Z and repetition is what really got through. And then again, there's still a lot of things that need to be worked on, but I think that was a strong first step. So just to youth advocates out there, to activists out there, organizers, I would say, do not allow adults or those in higher positions of power to kind of push you down. Because I have experienced that. I've allowed that to happen before and was discouraged by the results. But when I realized that, like, you know what, like if this is something that I really care about, this is something that I really want to stand for, I have to keep standing up for it, despite whatever the runaround may be. There was a point where I was like, you know what, maybe we just need to go and have it, regardless of having them there. It's that kind of thinking. It's seeing the goal and being like, we have to get to that goal by any means necessary. So
thank you for saying that. Because when you talk about the goal, as it was acknowledged earlier, this has been a continuation for liberation and justice and freedom. And as I love that Dr. Bettina Love speaks about in the Abolitionist Teaching Network about prioritizing Black joy, Black love, and kindness, not only speaking of the struggle, yet the legacy for us to live and thrive. Speaking of legacy and power, Sabor, what we've seen with athletes, right? With Kaepernick once taking a knee and the response to that, to how athletes responded this year. Will you speak to us from your perspective about your participation and what became clear to you? And I'm playing off of the fact that 2020 clear vision, what became clear to you this year?
Well, it became clear that even though you might play a sport, that you have a voice bigger than, you have a platform to speak to a greater amount of people than just the people that listen to you. So when we see Kaepernick take a knee a long time ago, before 2020, and how it affected him, now that you see uh, NFL teams, college teams, high school teams, even some Pop Warner teams all around the nation taking a knee, fighting for what they believe in, you kind of see that your voice and your opinion, even as an athlete or as an activist or as a Black man, has power. And it became clear to me that no matter my age, my experience, my maturity, that what comes out of my mouth has meaning. Mm-hmm. And so that as a group, even as a group on my football team, we had to really sit down and be like, we can change something in our community. We can show that it's not just in DC, it's not just in Minneapolis. What happens there happens everywhere. And so once you really break that down to people around you in your circle, and they start to break that down to people outside of their circle, it creates a movement, a wave. And so once you really break that down to people and help them understand what you're talking about, what you're fighting for, your voice, it goes from like the world is in your hand to the galaxy is in your hand. So I would say that that's what became clear, that what comes out of your mouth has a lot of power.
Wow. Thank you. Do you all want to ask or say anything to each other at this moment based upon what you heard, shared? See, when I do that, because the power dynamics, right? If I'm being responsible for my age and my position, I don't think I should be the one to only get to ask the questions, right? And I think when it comes to sharing power in a conversation, as if we were all together, we would all be in the room, right? Like I had the privilege of being at a Mary Baraka's home, and we're vigorously sparring and having an intellectual dialogue. And sometimes things pop in based upon what someone else says. So there's what we prepared and then what is present for us. And so I want to make sure I'm practicing my accountability and sharing the mic and the opportunity to say, which way do we go and grow? So any questions for each other or ask?
I got a question for Sammy and Ola. I know you guys went to the same high school, but kind of what made you guys go to one go to HBCU and one go to a predominantly white college? That was kind of on my mind.
Oh, I'm gonna let you take that one first.
Yeah, that's a good question. For me, I was thinking mainly about my career aspirations. I knew very early on that I wanted to be a physician. I knew that I wanted to study neuroscience in undergrad, and like Hopkins was like the best place to me to do that, because I also wanted to be in a city I wanted to be in a city with a lot of Black people, and Baltimore kind of fit that, because I knew that if I wasn't going to an HBCU, I at least wanted to be in a city that had Black people. So being in Baltimore was kind of critical to that decision. But it was mainly, I was focused on my career aspirations and wanting to be a physician and what I thought was the quickest way to get there.
And the top, the A game and the best. That's a great question, Sabor, with your GPA. Sammy?
So I chose an HBCU because I needed a break from being around white people all the time. I'll be 100% honest, because, in my class of 111, there were 8 of us that were Black. And I was like, I don't think with everything that I've gone through from 6th grade through 12th grade, I don't know if I'll be able to handle that again for 4 years with, within a greater capacity. And, the type of work that I want to do, I also wanted to connect more with my Blackness, because I felt as though there were a lot of things that I didn't understand about my identity while I was at Newark Academy. And as I got into my senior year, I started to understand more and more about, what does my Blackness mean in this type of space? I wanted to learn about what my Blackness meant in general with other Black people. What does my identity look like? And I really loved Howard. I went to a football game for my friend's 16th birthday. I went to a Howard Hampton football game, and I was just like, this culture, I don't know what this is, because my parents didn't go to HBCUs. They went to PWI, so they didn't understand what I was like when I was like, I need to go to an HBCU. I need to go. So that's why I chose my HBCU, the real HU, I will add.
Listen, it is so interesting and so much already that's there that I want to just ask several questions. So here's things I want people to maybe think about. Oh, Cyrus, yes.
Yeah, my bad. Before we go on, I also
interrupt me, not your bad. Always interrupt me.
Okay, I wanted to also answer Sabor's question too. So I go to PWI as well, Georgetown, and my reasoning for going to Georgetown has always is similar to Oluwa's. I went there because of career aspirations and wanting to do politics, but it's also, when I was thinking about it, because I got accepted both into Howard and Georgetown, I was thinking of the environments in which basically Black people have been excluded from for a long time. And I know that even if I wasn't around HBC or Black people, I know I will always find my community with them. And so I was thinking, what can I do to ensure further access into different groups that Black people don't usually have access to, are told that they don't have access to. And, when you look at Georgetown, the Black population doesn't break 10%. And it's a very, very classist university. It's a very, very racist university at that, even though it shows this prestigiousness on the outside. And, I said, I want to break through these barriers and ensure that, Black people have places everywhere within society. We have our community, but we could also break and build communities elsewhere in places that we have been denied for the longest.
Woo! Listen, I can't, as a youth worker, some of the questions that I wonder right now that come to mind is, how does someone navigate to create the options you all did as an option? And where are we in education based upon America's report card in 2020? When we went into a pandemic, this showed the landscape of our education system. Who had prepared? No one did. And how we went about moving. And so those who are currently, let's say, everything from K through 12 right now, right? How do they, and you all are doing the work wherever you are and very intentional about who's coming with you and behind you, as I hear Cyrus talk about policy and Sabor asking about the future. What are some of the things that you learned in navigating whichever school system you were in that helped prepare you where you are now? What would you tell young people in spite of or with what they have and do not have currently in all of these systems?
I think for me, for you know that toddler who answers everything you tell them by asking why? Be that toddler who's super annoying to just ask why all the time. I think questioning why things are done the way they are, I feel like I didn't do enough of that in high school, like at least. But I gained that tool in college to ask why things are done the way they are, why things have to stay the same, why can't things change, why, I don't know, just asking why a lot, I think will force the people who you're talking to really acknowledge the systems that they're playing into and force them to really think critically about what is going on in their world, but also open up a more honest dialogue, because like I feel like a lot of adults lie to children about the way things are, and that's part of why earlier I said like I had this veil about what this country was like, about what my experience would be like in this country, because people lie to us about the world. So asking why a lot will force people to, answer more honestly and be more open about what's going on.
Wow, I seen the collective head nod when you said that, Oluwa, right? Adults, listen up, listen up.
I like to go next. One thing I would definitely turn to those in K to 12 is don't think you're any less. I went to North Public Schools all my life, and our schools have been compared to other schools, and even within the schools, you have students being compared to one another. Oh, you didn't play on a sports team, or oh, you didn't do honor roll. There's this hierarchy system that produces the mindset within Black youth that they are less than and lower than someone, and that is the worst mindset, not just for Black youth, but the Black community, as it creates this idea that there's a problem that we also have to deal with on top of the problems are hardships that come with being Black. And one thing I've always found myself doing when I'm dealing with Black youth is ensuring that yes, you all have your specialties. You may be good in math, and you may like sports, and you may want to go into politics, but at the same time, all of you are equally valuable, despite what some people might say, despite the fact that a lot of people have given up hope in some ways on you. You are still valuable, and you should never lose that fact.
Thank you, Cyrus. Listen, some of us adults have to tell our inner child that same exact thing. Reminders. Sabor, I see you about to speak up.
Yeah. As somebody in K through 12, something I really do struggle with, and I know a lot of peers struggle with as well, is asking for help. Because we always feel as though that we have something to prove, or we have a point to make, that I just won't ask for help. Like I'd rather, sometimes I say to myself, I'd rather struggle to get the answer because the reward is so much better than asking for help. Like, and so I would say to especially younger kids, ask for help. Help is not a bad thing. It doesn't make you dumb. It doesn't make you weak. People are put in places to help you. And if you're not comfortable, asking a teacher for help, a parent, your friends are there. Like I used to think that, looking up the answer was bad. I used to really believe that looking up the answer was bad sometimes. And if you couldn't figure out yourself, then you weren't capable enough, or you weren't smart enough. And then it got to the point where it was like, all right, I need to ask for help. And breaking that barrier, it was, I don't do it all the time, but I felt as though it was really beneficial. So I would say somebody, K through 12, ask for help.
That's very courageous, vulnerable, and powerful for you to speak truth like that. Um, as you said, sometimes there's a construct that makes us think you have to be the one, do it alone, crab in the barrel fight. That's a contradiction and counterculture for us as a people. Of what I discovered, we're abundant. We believe in collectivity and support and village. It takes a village to raise us. And so what you just said was really, really powerful and important. And another point that I heard, Sabor, thanks to many of the parents and our ancestors' taxes that are paid, folks work for you, right? The school, people at school, their job is to teach. And so pull that teaching by asking for help or asking why and investigating systems, policies, structures. How does it actually work? Who makes the decision? I remember we were talking in preparation to this, noticing that there's a board and then an executive suite or administration, how the actual power structure, you mentioned hierarchy, how that hierarchy, or if you can envision a totem pole, how that works, who is there, how did they get there? That why, I'm very curious when it comes to seats at the table. I got to ask you a little bit about that. Solange came up with, made an album called Seat at the Table. Are you all invited to tables? Do you want a seat at the table, and which tables? Do we even need a table?
I've been asked this question a lot, and it's very like I'm not invited to tables at all, but the invitation is sent out. And what I mean by that is that I found myself in predicaments where, there would be people of other races who create these tables of discussion and send out an invitation, but the news will never reach the Black community. And so they would go and use this excuse like, oh, well, we sent out the invitation. But one thing that I've come to learn is that they don't always send an invitation out to you specifically. And that just says a statement when they could send it out to, different groups and organizations besides, the one that has the most Black people. And that says something out loud where it's like, we're sending out invitation, we're being open up, but we're excluding your group. And that's something that I have dealt with a lot, both in Newark and at my PWI, where it's like I was excluded, even though, quote unquote, the event or organization was open to everyone.
When you talk about seats at the table, that it all comes back, for me at least, it comes back to power and power structures and who has the power. So when I think about my experience at Newark Academy, I didn't know that the people who really have the power are the board of trustees. That's where all the money decisions are coming from. And we don't have a seat at that table. Students don't have a seat at that table. Students don't have a seat at the table with administration, besides the few, sometimes maybe the student government people can, interact with the administration more. But in general, as younger people, we don't have seats at the table in institutions of power. We don't have those seats at the table unless we force ourselves in. And I think that's part of what Sammy and I, in our work and all the Black at NA and Black Lives Matter NA, our work was forcing ourselves to be at the table, forcing ourselves, that was the first time I had interacted with anybody on the board of trustees out of that uprising at Newark Academy. I didn't even know what the board of trustees did before that. And even and I only know now because of college, because I was also on the executive board of BSU, Black Student Union, at my college. And I realized, well, Newark Academy is kind of structured in a similar way. And when I'm thinking about who makes the power decisions at Johns Hopkins, I'm thinking about the president of the university, the trustees, all those people. And in order to make any significant changes, you have to get buy-in from them. You have to convince them that you're valuable and worthy of all the things that you deserve as a human. So, for me, it's all about having a seat at that table, the power table.
Wow, you said something, again, we are powerful, we are worthy, we are genius, we are brilliant. And the forces that be are dealing with shifting, I hope, or maybe. Now, do we even need a table? And I ask this because you all, the invention of your day, social media, and the power, is it a powerful tool or not? How has social media been utilized to build, engage, connect, and organize, because we just got online. You know, adults, we just had to get online because of COVID. Y'all been connecting, but how did social media participate, or how did you utilize social media in movements, or how do you see it being used, and how can it be used?
Social media has the power to really speak volumes without having to do it yourself. You could share a post and hundreds of people to see it in seconds, and it'll touch the minds of many in moments. I feel as though social media also has the too much power, where what you see on the internet can really um, deter your mind, or really make you think or make you think of false reality sometimes, because not everything you see on the internet is real. And the internet was some of these on the internet are also put in place to put down Black people. You know, not everything, not every post, not every share is not positive. You know, some things are put in place to deter and put down our community, but at the same time, there's a place where you can uplift and, you know, spread a movement faster than you can do it with your mouth. And so, for an adult, you guys might not be so tech savvy, but you guys do, once it hits like the older generations, that's when you know that you've made a complete mark. Because in your community, as somebody my age, or Sammy, or everybody age, we all follow each other because we're in the same age range. But once you get to hit a platform where people that you never meet before, or that you will never see in real life, or somebody that's so much older than you or across the country, that's when you know that you've made a point or a statement through social media.
Thank you. It's really something to watch how movement changes. Something that I noticed, in any movement, the arts is right there. We are NJPAC, New Jersey Performing Arts Center, right? And so we look at the song "Strange Fruit." That was about, our ancestors being hung. If we look at the civil rights movement and the music and the way music participated in getting messaging out. Shout out to James Brown. I'm hip hop, and that's who was sampled the most out of hip hop. But "Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud," as well as we look at the Black Power movement, and Gil Scott-Heron and many greats. I thought it was so wild, caught me off guard when I seen y'all rocking the Pop Smoke. But it's so interesting that the song "Welcome to the Party" was one of the protest songs of the day. And I said, whoa, do they have protest music or not? And it was right there quick for me to be an ageist and start judging. However, I'm like, well, welcome to the party, right? As the political parties are sitting there battling, demonstrating that style of leadership, there's something really powerful about you all choosing, right? How you vibrate, how you use what you use in the movement. So I want to hear about people that we should be paying attention to, people that you want us to know about, the way that leadership looks like. What does it look like for your generation? It doesn't need to look like it would look like before. Well, what are some of the movements, some of the individuals that you want to highlight that's making a difference?
I'll go. There is.
I'm sorry, I forgot to say, including your own platform. Plug.
Oh. So I'll say there is a queer woman who attends Howard University. Her name is Destiny Harris. She's from Chicago, and she is a straight up abolitionist, intersectional abolitionist. She talks a lot about environmentalism in the Black community, and she was on the front lines of a lot of the Black Lives Matter protests. And her partner actually was at the Newark protest that I was at. So I was on the lookout for her. I was like, yo, I know who you're, I know Destiny, blah, blah, blah. It was really cool. But I think she, for me, she was really inspirational for me, whether or not she knows it, because we're colleagues. We're not really close friends, but both on campus and online, especially, I've just seen a lot of her work. She has been on many podcasts, led a lot of protests, both on campus and off campus. And I just think that you got to look out for her, because she's definitely, she's she's pushing the envelope. She's knocking the table over. The table is destroyed. She's getting the axe and she's going bop 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 with it. And you know, I kind of like want to talk a little bit about like just social media in general and its impact and like what it means like for us. It's like it's a platform for our own voice, and so I know that, you know, in the height of everything that I used it, I wrote a lot of reflections, and kind of like poetically in a way that I didn't know I was capable of. So like writing things, and I would just look back and be like, that came out of my mouth. Like I can say that. Like I have the ability to say that. And I think that's what a lot of social media has done for our generation. It's like we're figuring out that we literally can type all these things out and we can say them on videos. Like, why are we not saying them in person? And I think that's really where the shift is starting to happen. That's why a lot of protests, there are a lot of youth-led protests, because we're like, oh, we're able to say this on Instagram and Twitter. Let me go get my stuff and go outside and plan this protest, because I know I have the capability to do it in person. And so like piggybacking off of the, you know, Pop Smoke, Come to the Party, and like the soundtrack of our generation and what we do, I just think it's like so interesting. I remember like about, I think it was 3 years ago, I attended the Student Diversity Leadership Conference in Anaheim, California. And the song that kept playing was All Right by Kendrick Lamar. And I was just like, you know, like this is our anthem. This is the song that keeps us motivated. And a lot of our music that on the surface may not seem as like, you know, advocacy, it's motivation, because it's like, okay, there are underlying themes in every song that we listen to, whether we think of it consciously or not. Like there's just welcome to the party. All right, we're all joining together. We're all moving together. We're all moving together. We're gonna, you know, shake the room. That's actually another song by him. So
because it's one of the terms that your generation, I became aware of using, was it's a vibe, right? And
yes, it's a vibe.
Frequency. Music is frequency, it's a vibe. And the movements, which our actions heal the past and the future, right? And so it's more or less about the vibe, even if it ain't about the lyrics, right? And
right.
our generation, I'm a hip hop generation, right? Hey, we led the way when it came to expression that wasn't quote unquote appropriate. But each generation looks at the younger generation, music, art form, and expression. And though it is expanded beyond that older generation, it is not always embraced, right? It might be shunned, criticized, and so that's nothing new. And if anything, we can do something different about it. I am really curious as we're getting close to time to wrap up, but no time. Let me manage the time. You don't worry about it. It's timeless when we get together. We're abundant. What's up with our intergenerational conversations? Like for real. I know there was a mentioning earlier about us not being transparent, truthful. And I think sometimes in the interest of safety, maybe fear, concern, how, right? A lot of reasons, but from your experience and perspective, where do we go from here? Your generational's movement is very diverse. Who's on the street protesting with you, right? Some of it seems really similar to the pictures in the past. But at the same time, the Rainbow Coalition, for real, shout out to Jesse Jackson, right? But here's what it looks like right now, right? Where we see chains of allies and advocates and other disruptors, white bodies creating barriers for Black bodies. Like that right there, that's one of the things that was visible, right? This painting on the street, it's different. So what do we need to understand, listen to, and how do we support you all? I know those are 3 questions. I can repeat them. And you don't have to answer all of them, but whatever you all would share.
I could take this one. So one thing I feel as though that there needs to be an understanding of is, or just something that needs to be, quite frankly, tossed away in our mindset, is exclusivity. And what do I mean by that is that within the Black community, despite all the problems that we have endured and are enduring because of our Blackness, we have divides within our community. And that's true. We have divides in, sexuality, identity. Colorism is a big one. And those divides make it hard for us to progress as a community because Black people have been successful by acting as a collective in terms of like, we are not just our individuals, we are a group of people. And one thing I feel as though that we need to have a conversation about, both younger generation and older generation, is the idea that we cannot, neglect the problems of the LGBT community, gays, lesbian, trans, all that. And we also need to understand that while yes, the problems, of seeing usually come in, Black men dying in the street, being shot by police officers, there has been Black women who've been killed. There has been Black LGBTQ. I'm sorry, I have animals, but
Hey, we all at home. Animals at home too. Family members at home too. This is our real life now.
And one thing, and just to close up, we really need to talk about how we need to be more inclusive of everyone, because that's not just, just for the purpose of having everyone, but it's also something that is very, very important in terms of uniting the Black community and, moving forward.
Thank you, Cyrus. Anybody? Yeah.
Yeah, I want to piggyback. So I would highly recommend, if you haven't read this book, to read All About Love, Bell Hooks. And she has a chapter in there on children and parent relationships and things like that. But I think a lot of it comes down to seeing children and youth in general as full human beings, despite their age, with opinions and thoughts about the way the world around them is functioning. And then listening truthfully, like listening honestly, and like with the intention of taking action if needs be, is really important, because I feel like sometimes we have these conversations and everyone's like, listen to our youth, they're the future. And okay, you're listening to our youth, but you have the power. So are you going to give the youth the power now to actually do what they are talking about? Like, are you willing to cede power to youth? Because they are also full human beings who deserve power too, who deserve, like you said earlier, a seat at the table. So what does that look like? Putting a student on the board of trustees or having them sit in on those meetings. Like, are you willing to do that? Not just listen to us at our little forums. Like, are you willing to do that? Are you willing to take the next step and actually do what you're hearing from the youth? I think is important, because like I said earlier, children and youth are people who deserve full rights, and full rights also includes a say in their life, which means you got to give them a little bit of power.
I'm piggybacking off of you, Olua and Cyrus. I think adults, your fear is justified. I understand you're seeing a lot and you're hearing a lot and you're concerned. But at the same time, we have to come into these positions too. So you have to allow us to speak and to do the things that we need to do. Like, I know that in the beginning of the pandemic, my parents did not want me to go out and protest at all. They were very concerned, not just because of COVID, but because of everything that they've been seeing on the news. But at the end of the day, if you're not doing it, somebody's got to do it. And I'm willing to do it. So you have to let me do it, or else the change that you say that you want to see for us isn't going to happen. So that's my advice. You have to allow the youth, you have to allow your kids, you have to allow your students, you have to allow your nieces and nephews, and you have to allow people, the people who are going to be the next generation that you are so proud of and you keep calling on, to do what they need to do in order to make it a better place for themselves and for those that are falling behind them. So that's my advice.
My advice I would give would be listen with the intent of understanding. Sometimes when we speak, it's kind of like talking to a brick wall. Like, they'll let us talk to the point where it's like, okay, now that your point is done, I'm going to go back to what I was doing. and you have a good day. It's not like okay, yeah, I kind of understand where you're coming from. Maybe I can help you see change in what you're really talking about. And I think that's really the problem when it comes to a lot of with the people in power, that because we are young, they think we don't know what we're talking about, when in truth, we are the people that are living it. So I think that's what I would say. Listen with the intent of understanding.
Wow, thank you. I took some notes. Let me see if I'm, I don't know if I'm understanding, but let me see if I'm listening first, okay? Cyrus, unity. What I got from what you said is unified, togetherness, individual adding to the collective, and recognizing peers. Oluwa, uh, power, sharing power. If there is a table, invite. And I'm going to add on to what you say, not one spot, spots, spots. Samantha, Sammy, I heard practice, that you all can participate in practice with us, so that it's not now it's your turn, give it to you, and you ain't even get the practice, but you're learning as you grow, and that will stretch us, right? Because you ain't gonna do it the way you want us to do it. So then we'll really have to dissect, develop, and unpack. And with understanding, as Sabor said, listening to understand each other's perspective, differences, and then coming back to Cyrus, unify. Unify once we hear each other, how we want to participate, practice, and work together collectively and move, and not this your turn, your turn, your turn kind of torch, even though we're keeping the flame going. Ooh. Oh, wow. I see, shout out to my stepmom, Jacqueline Davis. She said the Children's March early in the Civil Rights Movement was backbone of the struggle because of the threat of loss of employment of adults, right? And so there's this consistency in young people, for a number of reasons, right? Even hip hop, the voice of the youth. And so I just was reminded of Ludacris' song, Get Out the Way, Get Out the Way. Honestly, it's like, practice together, but don't block. Don't be a barrier. Adults, we have to work on not being a barrier and sharing and teaching as we go. And so I'm going to also ask you all, as younger people than me, to keep in mind the younger people that also can do this with you, which we'll hear from one of them later on in a video, my man Noah, because there are 10, 11, 12-year-olds very active. There are 4 or 5-year-olds working with what they have, also demonstrating in action. What are some of the stereotypes, if you could just run them down, that we don't get it, we wrong, and what is the impact? What is the impact of these stereotypes on our multi-generational relationships, the impact on your generation? What are the stereotypes, though?
I would say not dumb. Like I don't think that older generations view younger generations as dumb, or just, I would say, unexperienced. Because you guys say, the number one quote is, I've seen it before, I've watched it happen before. Like when a mistake has happened, oh, I've lived it before. So I would say that we are seen as unexperienced, when it's in truth is, you can't there's no new mistakes in the world. So I would say that yeah, mistakes are gonna happen, but you have to be there to help. Like, beating somebody down for a mistake, what does that help? You can get a question. Somebody could tell me I'm wrong on a question 100 times. If I'm not explained on how to do it right, then I'm never gonna get it right. And so that's what I think is true to the situation.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off what Sabor said, one thing that I acknowledge, and I spoke on unity before, is the idea that has been our power in the first place. And I would say, as a young person, when you look at it now, you don't see that a lot in the Black community. And one thing, that contributes to that is just not just self-hate, but also hate on other Black people. I have been in environments where especially the older generation will be like, oh, those Black people on the West Side, or all those Black people over there, they're doing, they're gangs, they do drugs, or they do all these criminal acts. And one thing that that I always like had in my mind that steamed me up is that we used to be united, and we got highways built through our communities. We had the war on drugs, that was the war on Black communities. And one thing that did was basically divide us, and so that we couldn't come together like we used to in the before, during the civil rights movement. And that really is what tore us down, because it's like we used to have this sort of we used to have this unity in the past, and we went through this era where the people who oppressed us did everything they can to make it seem as no, we're different, and you know what, because of our differences, it's hurting us. Like, I've also been around people who say, oh, Black people suffer today because of these people, or oh, these stereotypes wouldn't be true if Black people did this. And then, I know we've all watched Boys in the Hood. It's impossible not to see that. There's one scene from that always has been in my mind throughout life, is when the cop, basically the Black cop, aggressively points a gun at one of the Black main characters, claiming he's from a certain neighborhood. And that is really astounding, because it just shows how much has been used to turn against us, and divide us. And I just want to end on this note, like, we haven't mentioned a lot on money and stuff like that. And, one thing that is lacking in the Black community is the ability to, give money. There's a lot of impoverished people within the Black community. But one thing I feel as though that we also have to keep in mind is that there has been more money that has been used against us than we have had to build our community. And it's to say that, in terms of money and, not just money, but resources, we have to understand that we have to really build up ourselves a lot, because there's been put so much against us that I feel as though people have forgotten.
I think there's two stereotypes that I want to talk about really quickly. The one is that, we spend all of our time like partying or dancing, or too much time on Twitter or whatever, or TikTok, whatever the new thing is. And I think, just part of it is that I think people aren't understanding that these are the avenues in which we experience joy. And I don't think that there's no reason to take away from that. Like, I think that I want to experience joy. And if me being on Twitter for a little bit longer than I should be is how I experience joy, watching TikToks or whatever, then I'm going to do that. Another thing I think that I hear a lot about our generation is that we all want handouts, or that we just want things given to us. And I will just be the first one. I would definitely like a handout. Like, I definitely want a handout, because I don't think my government should allow me to suffer. I don't think that this government should be allowing Black people to suffer. Like, and when we talk about student loans, people getting upset that they paid their student loans back, so now our generation should have to pay our student loans back. And like romanticizing the struggle as if that struggle is going to really teach us anything about, living like a full, happy life. Just because, like, I don't know, I feel like that kind of gets romanticized in older generations, that idea of that we should have to struggle through life to learn something or be better people. And I don't believe that to be true. And I think a lot of when we hear that, I think what I'm trying to get at here is that right now what we're demanding the rights that we're promised, that we're demanding the rights that all humans should have. And demanding your rights is not a handout. But if y'all want to call it a handout, yes, I want a handout. But to me, that's not a handout.
Oof. Sammy?
And
you might
this
want to
sounds silly.
Yeah,
this sounds really silly, but all I've heard most of my life is all y'all do is sit there and dance, and y'all don't do anything. Like, what are y'all doing? All y'all do is make these weird dances and sit on your phone and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, okay. And what about it? Maybe I like doing that. Like piggybacking off what Olo said, like, okay, like little do you know, that's my self-care. And I think that another thing is that younger people can't experience trauma. They can't have have deep seated mental health issues like that. I know for a long time, like I'm kind of doing a lot right now, but I know for a long time, a lot of what were symptoms of a lot of my mental health were kind of brushed off because I was too young to understand. Or like in terms of sexuality, I'm too young to understand this. I'm too young to know this. I'm too young to know that. Well, how did you know that you were the way you were when you were my age? Like there's no I take us seriously when we say something, even if it seems like the most outlandish and ridiculous thing you've ever heard. Like sometimes like the way that we articulate things to you may not be the way that you're used to hearing them, but that doesn't mean that they're any less valid. And it doesn't mean that we don't know what we're talking about. So I think that's a big one.
Expand on how we come to understand expression. Don't judge joy. Acknowledge dance as self-care. Yes, this generation is talking about mental health the way no other generation has. So come on, services. Come on, generational trauma. Come on, naming it and saying it. Come on, not judging colorism, sexuality, choices, hearing the voices as well. Wow, y'all. I'm like, bell hooks, orgy, Lord, all of them. This is what they were talking about, the revolution. And here it is. And here's what it looks like and how it's getting passed on. Y'all, we're going to move into the Q&A and have enough time to make sure that you all leave us with the call to action. What is it for us to do based upon what you're up to or what your generation says? We're going to take it to the chat right now and check out some of the questions. And just those, thank you to those who are assisting in production. There's a team at NJPAC that's been planning and preparing for this, and that's continuing to. And so I'm trying to find some of the questions and just asking for assistance. As Sabor said, I'm asking for help. Can you help me find the questions right here? There were a few great ones. All of them are great because they're being asked. Let me say that. And while the questions are getting to me, I want to apologize for the way we passed on any pain and the way that we didn't acknowledge it. So I apologize on the strength of me and everybody that comes before me.
If you look at the bottom bar, I think there's a Q&A section right next to like the record button. And I think there are questions in there.
That's what I needed. Thank you. I just couldn't find it. There it is. Here we go. Dorian, what up? Dorian asked, what organizations have you worked with? Really like? Do you recommend any organizations for those of us who are young at heart?
I could take this one. So I worked with a lot of organizations throughout my life, and I worked with the NAACP North Chapter. I'm very well connected. I'm basically family to Miss Deborah Smith Gregory. She's like my grandmother. I've also been a part of community organizations such as New Jersey Communities United, and I've actually started community organizations such as the Newark Student Union to help public school students, get what they need. So in terms of answering the question, how do you, what organizations you join when you're young at heart? One thing I would say is that, you could join really much any organization that is dictated towards, solving the problems that we see in our community, whether that be the NAACP, massive organization, or whether that be a local based organization, like the ones that I did, or you could even start your own. But it's more so about what are the objectives of the organization rather than its name or its title. It's all about the objective and where that organization is going. So that's how I would answer that question.
All right, another one. If you could tell adults, and this is, we can have anyone take these on that want to. If you could tell adults right now, one sentence, what do you want to see change in activism? This is great right here because everybody's taking a moment to think before you speak. You take your time.
Mine is, this is gonna sound kind of harsh, but sit down and listen. Sit down and listen, because it's getting to be our turn, and a lot of the issues that we see are ones that have existed for a long time. They're not new, but we have a new lens, and I feel as though there's a fire. I don't know. I feel as though it's amped up everything. We are really excited about addressing these issues. Like, I don't know if you have seen, but people have been getting dragged left and right this whole year. So just sit down and listen to what we have to say and watch what we're doing, and maybe not ask us literally why, but kind of just sit on it and think about why we're doing the things the way that we're doing them.
Watch and wonder.
I got a sentence. My sentence would be to acknowledge the youth's persistence. One thing that is common throughout all generations really is that there is always the youth is always like persistent in terms of solving problem, and that's just not within our generation. Like someone mentioned the children's march, and over time, those children who eventually grew up began to be protective of Black youth, because it is a dangerous thing to do. It is a dangerous thing to go out and make your voice heard and protest, because you could get hurt, and worst case you could get killed, and that is terrifying to adults, adults with children, adults who help and teach you, and it's sad, but that's also one of the things that comes with wanting to make your voice heard, that endangerment that is it. And I know it is within the good intentions of adults to want to be protective of Black youth because of everything we have seen, not just the death of George Floyd, but the death of youthful people like Tamir Rice. It is natural to be protective, but if you don't acknowledge that there is this certain persistence that isn't going to go away, and you're always going to find yourself protective, which can hinder us from doing what is essentially something that every youth of every generation has done at one point.
Risk taking, trust.
Me, I would say not all leaders walk in the front. It's okay to take a back seat and make sure nobody's left behind. In a wolf pack, the leader walks in the back, make sure no one's left behind, and that everybody fights until the end. And I would say, let us walk in the front, and then you guys help us. When it's needed. You guys don't have to be in the front. I think it's to the point where we are, as everyone says, we are the future. We are next. Our time is now, and I feel as though once you really trust what we're doing, it might not be the way you would do it, but times have changed. The way our world is completely different, and times have changed. So it's okay to walk in the back. It's okay to be a passenger and not the driver. That's my sentence, I guess.
Leadership looks different in all kind of ways. Reimagine it. Some leaders are introverts. Some leaders are in different positions, left, right, in a circle, flying up and down. Word. Olawa, you want to share one sentence or not?
Sure. I think mine kind of piggybacks, kind of goes to a lot of points that have already been said, but I would think it would be to listen carefully and think critically, especially before you push back. Think critically about why it is. What are your motivations for why you want to push back? Is it because you don't think that person deserves to be heard? Is it because of some internalized thing that you're holding? I think thinking critically about your motivations, the why, about where that person may be coming from, and that person in my mind is a youth person. So I think thinking critically, because I feel like this is a major failure, I think, of our education system is critical thinking skills, and I think that all of us at any age can improve on thinking critically and analyzing why we do the things we do, And I think our motivations, but especially when we're pushing back on someone, when we're, ardently disagreeing, examining the why behind that, I think is important.
Speaking of education, our essential workers are at home. Parents, our teachers, and students are their own teacher as well right now, right? So there's a question, giving all the trauma experiences and negativity in the news, how do you maintain a positive mental space and stay motivated? And how can parents best help their children cope?
Okay, so great question. I've encountered this question throughout the pandemic several times. One thing I've always tell people is that you can ignore negativity, doesn't mean it goes away. Part of life is going through positive and negative events. And I feel as though in order to maintain a positive, mindset or environment, it's not to ignore the negativity or, highlight the positives of an event, although highlighting positives, it is an important step. One thing that you also have to do is find the source of those negativities, and if you can't plug them, find outlets for, the negative feelings that it caused. Like, people be so frustrated and say, I want to cry, and then my next question is, well, why don't you? And because, there's always this like stigma against crying, and, especially in the Black community, you have to be strong no matter what. And it's like, listen, negative feelings never go away. They're a part of life. And, it's okay to have an outlet for them. It's okay to, want to go outside and scream on the top of your lungs. I did that several times throughout this pandemic, just screaming how tired you are at the world. And, if you have outlets, and if you can identify sources and, stop what's causing those negative feelings, you'll find yourself not only maintaining your positivity that you've already had, but also building upon it as you discover what can make you calm, what can make you like feel less negative about what's happening around you. And, this could all be applied to trauma too. You don't neglect trauma. That only makes trauma worse. That only makes it worse. So you have to address it, I feel like.
Ooh.
And
Sorry.
huh?
I'm
Oh,
not.
no problem. And just to answer the last question, what parents could do, just sit down and listening. There's this belief that there's the parent and there's a child, and that kind of downplays how intelligent and how children and youth tend to be, and it's so neglectful of how they're capable of abstract thinking. And if you just took the time to sit down and listen to your child and acknowledge that although they could be misguided at times, they're still growing up, there's some things that they said that actually could strike impact within you that can make you more even closer to your child.
Yeah, we are at time. It is time, and it's not over, right? Because we're staying in action and active. And I did say that the call to action, it was important that you all make it. So I'm going to actually take what I've learned from you all. I'm going to read the questions that have been asked and not answered. I'm going to ask that you write responses in the chat, or you go onto NJPAC's Facebook, right? I'm giving you more homework. And if you can answer the response to the questions that have not been asked, or things that come to your mind, and be able to engage people there with the call to action, then we'll be able to return to that documented moment and reference that. Are you all willing to do that? To use the chat and use the Facebook? I know Facebook is for us, so I fear. But to share out, and people want to stay connected with you all. So also, if you can share your social media, your websites, ways that people can invite you to conversations, have you on board of trustees, or pay for your college tuition. We want to make sure they can find you. So I'm just going to read the questions. With the press, the new administration, and be seated with them bringing solutions to the former deaf dinosaurs, I am definitely seeing you there with Giuliani Williams and Osasio and like-minded individuals. I'm proud of your wisdom you carry. Press on and keep legacies of our ancestors prevalent. First Nation people, bloods run through our veins. We have the same challenges. Who will reach out and form permanent bonds? In the past, we have railed together against genocide and colonialism. Why can't this bond be resurrected today? Brothers to brother, spirit to spirit, Mother Earth is being deprived, is being put to death, and every second passes, we need to get back together. If you are at the table, is that or person school that actively listening obligated to do what is recommended to you by as youth? And what inspires you to tell your story or influence how you share your story? What artists or performers inspire you? So those are some of the questions that you all didn't get to answer here. Maybe start with the artist one and put it in the chat. I am grateful. Thank you. Peace, shared power, shared privileges, shared positions, shared resources. Take all the seats, listen, let them lead. They're active and alive right now, not later, not in the future. We all here right now. So let's gather, let's connect, let's unify and not separate. And peace, love, power, much gratitude, self-care, love, and joy, y'all. Thank you for being here. Thank you very much. Miss Donna?
Thank you, Purple. Thank you, panel. Oh my goodness. Before we close out, we do have another musical excerpt that we would like to share with you. I had introduced the gentleman earlier, but this is actually his piece. And this video was from one of our arts education students, AKA Noye, Noah, AKA Noye, also known as Check Mix. And he has put together a message, and then we're going to listen to that, and then we'll close out. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Noah Akinoye. I'm 12 years old, and this is my poem, Gravity. Every time our head is in the clouds, we are yanked back down to the place from which we came. We can jump high but never soar. Gravity pulls us down. That fleeting instant of blissful weightlessness is just that, an instant. But the weight of society's darkness at the sight of our whitelessness is lifted. Our branches are in the north, but our roots can never cross the Mason-Dixon. Gravity pulls us down.
Thank you, Noah. Clearly, we have seen the power of our youth voices and have heard them this evening. Thank you, panel, for your amazing insight, your passion, your commitment to social justice, to uprooting systemic racism here in America. Thank you, Purple, for your great moderating this evening. And of course, thank you, PSE&G, for your wonderful support in our ongoing True Diversity Social Justice panels. I also wanted to just let everyone know that there's a part 2 to this panel, which will be on Wednesday at 7 o'clock. We'll be still looking at this topic of where do we go from here, but it will be from the perspective of arts and cultural leaders here from across the United States, actually. So we hope that you can join us as we talk about themes of social justice and how we can be sustainable in the United States despite this pandemic that we're experiencing. And then on Saturday, NJPAC will present our 22nd year of Kwanzaa. We will have 7 separate activities that will correspond to the 7 principles of Kwanzaa, which will include all kinds of wonderful engagement from dance workshops to arts and craft to panel discussions. We have a Divine Nine hosting a panel discussion. We have elder stories with our elders from our community sharing their experiences. So it is not to be missed. All of this you can find on our website or on our Facebook. But Kwanzaa this Saturday, this Wednesday, part 2 of where do we go from here. And then of course, we hope we see you every month as we present our social justice panels and taking action to transform our community. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a great evening. Thank you.